Hi, everybody. I'm very excited to have a few people on today, a couple of guests. We've got Nayla, and we have Diletta, and we have Marta, and are here talking about their recent article called "An Investigation of How and Why Organizations Enact Greenhushing." A very topical and important conversation, and one we're seeing a lot of interest in as well too. So thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate you all being on the podcast.
Thank you so much
Thank,
for having us.
thank you. Yes, thank you.
Awesome. So to start us off, for people who may not have read the article yet, because it just came out earlier this year, could you give a summary of what it is you take a look at in the article?
Yeah, so I'll start by telling what greenhushing is all about first. So it's basically the concept where organizations make a strategic decision that they do not want to openly communicate their sustainability practices. And it's basically the opposite of more commonly known phenomena, which is greenwashing, where organizations are exaggerating their sustainability practices. So in this paper, we have conducted two studies. In the first part, we do a content analysis of 300 hotels, and we selected these 300 hotels by using the benchmark from sustainability program by booking.com, and then we conducted their content analysis on their websites, on their social media. We chose Facebook and Instagram for this. So the reason that we chose booking.com's sustainability program is that we wanted to have a benchmark first. So these hotels have their sustainability practices verified by a third party platform. And then we went to their websites, we went to their social media channels, and we saw that whether they are communicating these sustainability practices to audiences or not. What we found in this study was only 38% of the hotels were communicating their sustainability practices on their websites, and less than 2% of their social media posts focused on sustainability content. So we identified that greenhushing has been practiced on their websites and especially on social media platforms as well. Then in the second part of this research study, we conducted interviews with marketing managers from the service industry that included managers from hotels, restaurants, salons, because we wanted to identify the reasons behind greenhushing as well. And they were able to tell us two primary reasons. The first one was that they had this fear of greenwashing accusations, that if they communicate about sustainability, they would get backlash from the public. And the second one was that there is limited confidence in their sustainability practices as well. They aren't too sure if they are doing enough, if they are saying the right thing as well. So these are the major reasons that we identified in the second part.
That's interesting, right? So it's very prevalent in the hotel industry, and they seem to just be kind of afraid of that sort of reprisal from consumers. Intriguing, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so should they be doing this? Is this something that companies, is it a good strategy, or should they actually be talking more about their sustainability practices when they go through and are on social, on the websites, and things like that?
Yeah, if we see it from our perspective, we would want them to communicate more on their websites, on their social media as well, especially when they have verified sustainability practices. They have these verified by third-party platforms, so they should be confident enough to talk about these, but they aren't confident, so there must be something wrong there. They need to build their confidence. Maybe they need to overcome their fear of greenwashing as well, in able to communicate it more confidently.
Oh, interesting, yeah. Any other sort of implications for advertisers or companies that come out of your findings as well, or?
Yeah, so like I said before, they have this fear of greenwashing, they have limited confidence as well. But we also identified another trend. Most of the organizations which are practicing this greenhushing, they also tend to not track their performance data in sustainability. So we identified that that could be one of the reasons. Since they are not tracking their performance, this could be the reason that they aren't confident to communicate it. So we recommend that they track their sustainability performance with verifiable metrics, and then they communicate their sustainability practices backed by these verifiable metrics. So they would be more confident in communicating it to audiences, and they would have less fear of backlash. On top of that, we have also recommended that they have a consistent effort across different platforms. For instance, if they are communicating on their websites, they should try to be transparent and build the same story across different social media platforms as well. So it feels more authentic. It feels like they are doing the right thing across all platforms instead of telling one story on one platform and telling something else on the other ones. So this is what we recommend in our study.
Interesting. Yeah. So these companies are not doing enough of it, and they're missing out on the benefit that they could be getting from consumers in terms of actually communicating what they're doing. And I guess they're spending a lot of money on this in some cases as well too, and not really getting those benefits either.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of the managers that we talked to in this study, they do have certification programs. They are doing a lot of things, but they said that they were not confident enough to communicate it. So they are missing out, definitely.
It's interesting. Yeah. Are there any other reasons you might have hypothesized around why they might not be doing this? Um,
Uh, mm, I'm going to have to think about it. I think we had greenhushing as the top of our guesses, and it came out to be greenwashing as well. So these were the major two reasons. Yeah.
okay, cool. I always kind of wonder if it's maybe just sometimes it's like the intern is doing the social media and just doesn't know to do it or something like that. Sometimes there's like reasons like that too, but I guess the key ones are the ones you identified there.
Yeah.
In terms of the idea itself, where did it come from? Like, I'm always curious for articles, like where people get the idea to kind of go through and study something.
Yeah, I can get this one. Basically, Nayla, Marta, and I were like developing a critical review of the literature on the intention behavior gap in sustainable consumption. So basically, we were reviewing the literature on why consumers express their interest and intention to behave more sustainably and responsibly, but they actually don't. And one thing that the literature has emphasized is the role of awareness. So basically, when consumers are not aware of the consequences of their behavior, they don't act in a responsible way. And here, to raise awareness, of course, especially in those stages of the customer journey, like product delivery or returns, where the knowledge is lower. I would say communication is very important because through communication, companies can explain to consumers the consequences of their behavior and their choices and raise this awareness. So what happens when companies do not communicate about this? So basically, they don't enable consumers to do informed decisions. So we started thinking about why companies enact greenhushing and don't communicate about sustainability. Of course, there is a group of companies that are not interested in sustainability. They don't develop sustainability initiatives. So of course they don't address and cover this topic. But there is also a part of companies who are more afraid of communication and maybe are concerned about potential backlash. And we had some expectation on why this happens, but we wanted to talk to companies directly and see what they had to say. And then we started to reflect also if this is something important. Of course, we did our reality check, and we thought that greenhushing somehow like limits the dialogue on sustainability, and this can have consequences because companies do not share best practices, they don't learn from each other, they don't communicate the challenges that they could overcome together. So like limiting the dialogue on sustainability is per se something like dangerous somehow. So it's not just a missed opportunity in terms of marketing, it's also a missed opportunity in terms of social change. So we thought it was an interesting topic to investigate and explore more. But of course, we also had some conversations with a few companies before starting the project. And maybe, Marta, you can be more precise here.
Sure, yes. So together with this theoretical or literature point of start of our project, we are often inspired by things that we observe in the real world. Actually, sometimes we even share examples of marketing initiatives that we particularly like or we see in our everyday lives. So in this case, we started noticing how some organizations were becoming increasingly quiet about sustainability, even when they were undertaking genuine initiatives. And I remember, for example, meeting the director of a major grocery retailer in Spain, and he openly told us that they had deliberately decided not to highlight sustainability efforts in their marketing comms. So that was really something that caught our attention because it went kind of against the common discourse that we hear about companies wanting to showcase and exaggerate sustainability actions. So as we were like going deeper into this observation, we realized that it wasn't an isolated case, and actually organizations across different sectors were struggling with the question on how to or whether to communicate their sustainability efforts. And that led us to this question: if greenwashing is problematic because it exaggerates sustainability efforts, could under-communicating efforts also have consequences that are unintended? I think that was another way to look at it from our perspective as consumers or observers, citizens that observe how businesses behave.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, and I think as you mentioned as well too, Diletta, like the idea that if some companies start doing this, it almost kind of suppresses others potentially as well too, because they then don't want to talk about it because it's not as normalized, right? And then it does sort of set things back and perhaps sort of slow change that might otherwise happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So the big question I've got next is around challenges, which I think is always kind of a fun one. And it's sort of similar to what you're talking about. I think if we don't talk about the challenges in research, we often just see the published articles that are beautiful like yours, and we forget about the challenges that sometimes happen during the process. So were there any that you experienced when you were working on this particular project?
Yes, I can share some of what I perceived as a challenge, and probably some of my colleagues can expand later. So I would say that one of the biggest challenges was the data collection process. So we were collecting data a couple of years ago, and Nayla already explained a little bit at the beginning of our conversation that the process involved two stages. The first one was quite straightforward in terms of collecting secondary data. I would say that we were able to just collect from different sources and triangulate the data. However, the second stage was much more challenging because we wanted to understand motivation, what was driving this. So we did observe the evidence, and our main goal was to find the motivations behind greenhushing, why organizations selectively communicate or withhold sustainability information. So we targeted the marketing managers and across different service sectors, and particularly those sectors that were are characterized by direct consumer interaction, because we think that analyzing sustainability in these sectors was especially relevant. But probably I can let Nayla expand on this part because she was leading the interview and getting in touch with managers, and that was a really hard work.
Yeah, so thank you, Marta. I'll take up on that. So I would say that one of the biggest challenges that we faced was to recruit managers as well, because throughout the beginning of the study as well, I started reaching out to different managers, and many of them were not open, or they were not willing to talk about their sustainability communication. And how we tried to address that issue is that we identified that industry benchmark through booking.com's sustainability program. So we were able to identify greenhushing trends first, and we were able to discuss them with managers as well, that this is something that your hotel or your organization is doing as well. Because managers initially were not even familiar with the concept of greenhushing. When we explained it to them that what exactly is greenhushing, then some reluctantly, some openly admitted that they are doing greenhushing, but initially it was not something that they were familiar with. We discussed that whether it's something happening in the industry, which is why they are following it. They were not familiar with it. They said that this is something that they have decided that they are not openly communicating their sustainability practices. So that's how we tried to address that issue, to combine it with sustainability program from booking.com. And that's also something which is changing very rapidly. So even after we were close to publication, the program at booking.com also changed quite quickly after that, because they are making their verifications of sustainability practices more robust. So it's ever changing. So it's happening really quickly in the industry.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, Nayla. Yeah. I'm interested as well too, like when you shared this information with the different hotels, like were they surprised that they were in company, that the other people were doing the same thing, or how did they kind of react to that? I'm curious. Yeah.
They became slightly more comfortable when they heard that others are doing it as well. So they
Yeah.
admitted it more openly when they heard that other sectors or other competitors are doing the same thing as well. Before that, they were slightly reluctant to admit that they are hesitant to communicate their sustainability practices. So yeah, definitely.
That's interesting. Yeah. So they're greenhushing as well. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So final question is really interesting is where to next, right? So where might people, take this idea and extend the great work that you've done as a team, or other ideas you might be working on yourselves? I don't know, but like where do you think are the most fruitful sort of areas to look at next on this important topic? Yeah.
Yeah, I can maybe explain one direction. So, yeah, thinking about our findings, but also observing what is happening around the world. I think we believe that it would be interesting to see how political or societal events influence the way companies communicate or under-communicate their sustainability, or how they reframe it and adjust their communication to these events. Because if we look at the recent dynamics, political, societal events, like, for instance, the backlash against the diversity, equity, and inclusion in the US, and how companies were like, again, adjusting their communication because of these dynamics, it is clear how communication about CSR and sustainability is fragile, and also is evolving, right? Especially when this is not really integrated in the purpose of the company or the identity, and is firm-centric or a strategic tool used by companies, is more subject to change. So different times bring and drive different values, and so different ways of communicating sustainability, or different initiatives that are communicated by companies. So yeah, I think one interesting direction for future studies could be to understand how sustainability communication and greenhushing, so lack of communication, is influenced by society-related events and political issues happening around the world. Do you
That'd be
agree?
very interesting to take a look at.
Yeah.
I can also probably highlight another area that we're all interested if we have time, Colin.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
This is, I think, because our background as researchers is quite focused also on consumer decision making and consumer psychology. So we find particularly interesting how consumers' responses will be to greenhushing, because today we help explain with our paper why organizations stay quiet about sustainability, but we still know relatively little about what happens when consumers become aware of that silence, how they perceive that silence. So we are curious about it, and we think that there might be consumers that react negatively because they feel that important information is being withheld from them, or maybe some consumers are actually seeing it from a positive standpoint because they think, well, companies are being authentic, or they don't need to showcase this to get
Mm.
more consumers, right? So my intuition is that the answer will probably depend on the consumer, their personality, or ideology even. Some individuals might actually appreciate a more cautious approach, especially in a context where people are increasingly skeptical of CSR messaging, as Diletta just highlighted. And on the other hand, those that are highly conscious about sustainability, they might see it as a missed opportunity or even a breach of trust. If they discover that the company has strong
Mm.
sustainability credentials, but choose not to communicate them, they may feel even betrayed, like information is being hidden and is deliberately omitted from my decision-making process, and that might not be really positive for them.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how people react to it. And you're right, it probably is a pretty wide range of different reactions. Yeah. Yeah. I also wonder as well too, just going back to the idea around building firms' confidence, right? Like, I think that could be interesting to take a look at as well too, of like how do you get companies to feel more comfortable kind of doing it? And maybe part of it's the style, or part of it's the statistics as well too that you mentioned. I don't know, but it could be kind of cool. Yeah.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing more about your important and very groundbreaking new study as well too. So it was great to have you all on. So thank you, Diletta, Nayla, and Marta for coming on. And for those who are interested, this is in the March 2026 issue of JAR, and it's called An Investigation of How and Why Organizations Enact Greenhushing. So thank you again for being on.
Many
Thank you
thanks,
so
Colin.
much.
For asking us.